Hi, my name is Kevin Weaver, and I'm applying for the Psychiatric Mental Health Nurse Practitioner program at Ohio University to start this fall. I chose this program and population being soldiers, I'm a veteran, at Ohio University because Ohio University is ranked #1 online program from nurse practitioners online. I found the reviews to show it to be a very academically robust program with exceptional staff and faculty, and that's very attractive to me as an academic myself, somebody who's always appreciated being challenged. My ultimate professional goal with this certification is to go back and work at the VA here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We have 2 large VAs and a very large retired and veteran population outside of Fort Bragg here. What my experience and training is that has prepared me to be successful in this role. Let me go back and tell you a little bit about myself. I am an Army brat. I grew up in Germany, moved back to the United States when I was 19 years old and followed my father's footsteps into the military. I didn't necessarily think that I was brave or I had what it took necessarily to be a soldier, but I did have a passion for medicine and being a healer, and so I enlisted as a combat medic. I loved the show Rescue 911. I thought that the prospect of being there on the front lines, at point of injury, the adrenaline of it all was where I needed to be. And that seemed very attractive to me. I went back to complete a nursing degree and commissioned later as an Army Nurse Corps officer in 1998 and followed that passion for emergency medicine into additional military training to be a certified emergency nurse in the Army. I was stationed in Hawaii, and on the morning of September 11th, 2003, being in a vastly different time zone, a friend of mine from the mainland called me at 3 o'clock in the morning to wake me up and said, hey, something really bad's going on, turn on your TV. And I sat in the darkness of my apartment and watched the Twin Towers fall. And I knew that we were soon to become a country at war because we were going to go looking for the folks who did this to us, and we were going to take our swing back. So I moved to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and prepared to deploy with a forward surgical team. And that is a 20-person element of 4 surgeons, a small anesthesia element, operating room nurse, ER nurse, ICU nurse. And our mission was to embed with the forward maneuver elements to do damage control surgery on the battlefield. So we've got exceptional individual body armor and helmets, so we're losing fewer soldiers to head wounds and direct injuries to the box of life, but we are losing a lot of, we did anticipate, and we're already in Afghanistan, losing a lot of soldiers to bilateral amputations and bleeding out on the battlefield. So whereas there's a golden hour of trauma, we recognize that there's a platinum 10 minutes of battlefield trauma. And if they have early intervention, a lot of these wounds that soldiers succumb to, they could survive. They were survivable injuries. So during that first tour of the initial invasion of Iraq, it was the honor of my life to take care of soldiers wounded in battle. It was a very rewarding experience to send soldiers home to their children and their wives and their families. And it was a devastating experience to lose soldiers and not be able to send them home. After drawing blood from their battle buddies who brought them in and stuck their arms out and said, take my blood, give it to them, and doing whole blood transfusions just to turn around and tell the battle buddies that they didn't make it, despite our best efforts and their blood. It was devastating to see the mental collapse of soldiers who lost their battle buddies. It was devastating to look down and see a soldier wearing the same uniform I wore with the patch of the United States not go home to their family. So I probably banked some of the most devastating sadness of my life during that tour as well. I did another tour later in 08-09 and suffered a blast injury after a mortar exploded and I fell back and hit my neck on a plywood shelf. Fast forward to 2000, but I After a brief loss of consciousness, I got up and I went back to work, and it's the old Army motto, suck it up and drive on. And that can be a good thing, but it also doesn't serve soldiers well in terms of mental health and thinking that they should be able to power through whatever they're going through. This feeling down, hopeless, depressed, angry. If only they were better or stronger, they could get through it, is a fallacy, I think, that is largely created by this overall just keep pushing yourself. Don't ever tap out. Don't go to sick call. So, again, I'd like to be part of this solution. I think that my experience and my background, 27 years as an Army nurse, will serve me well in terms of sitting across from a soldier and bringing a measure of credibility, speaking the same language, sharing the same background. And I've had to shift focus at this time. Again, I shared that I had a tremendous passion for emergency medicine, and that was my career. Trauma medicine is my passion. Following that blast injury in 2009, apparently I was having a lot of kind of overgrowth of bone in my vertebrae in my neck, and it came to a head in 2019 as I stood at the bedside of a patient at Ryder Trauma Center, facilitating a training rotation with military staff, and lost the feeling in my hands and my arms, and had an emergent MRI that showed bone growing into my spinal cord. So I suffered a spinal cord injury. I had central cord syndrome. I had a decompression of my neck. I was on convalescent leave for 7 months, and I was medically retired from the military, again, after 27 years. That was a tremendous loss to me. It was a big blow. There was a lot going on at that time, but at the time that the music stopped and the clock struck midnight and I realized that the uniform wasn't mine anymore and I was officially retired, I had a tremendous loss of sense of self and identity, and I felt very lost, honestly. I went from a person who was an exceptional overachiever throughout my life. I just pushed harder and harder and faster and didn't let anything slow me down, even the trauma that I realized I didn't process looking back. I had the opportunity to do a podcast last year called War Stories, and they titled my episode Nursing on the Front Lines, and got a lot of feedback. I came back for a second week, and I felt really exhilarated in a way that I hadn't in a number of years since I retired. And I thought, I want to get the old me back. I miss that. I miss being a giver, a healer, consequential, a contributor. And at the end of the second episode, they asked me, Kevin, you've gone through a lot. You've experienced a lot of trauma in your life, a lot of hard things. What advice do you have to give other soldiers who are returning home, who are injured, who are medically retiring, law enforcement officers, first responders, who are suffering the invisible wounds of war? And I realized that I didn't have a whole lot to say. After 2 episodes of talking nonstop, I really didn't have the answers there. And in watching the episodes, I can see my body posture change physically as I felt kind of collapsed. And I said, honestly, I think I never really did deal with it. And it wasn't until I was forcibly medically retired from the Army that, I started to recognize the trauma that I had, but I still didn't know what to do with it. I have had great benefits from some mental health treatment since I've retired. I saw a practitioner who said, I get the sense you're not a touchy-feely kind of person. You're an academic or a clinician. You want to know the ins and outs, the whys. And said I wouldn't normally suggest this book, but I do think it would be good for you. And that was The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And it is his kind of summation of his practice and study into the evolution of what has become known as post-traumatic stress disorder. So, battle fatigue, shell shock, why were Vietnam veterans behaving the way that they were when they came back, and the study of the physiologic toll that severe trauma takes on the body. And I remember just being sucked in and listening to it and thinking, "Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. That makes sense." I drank it in and I felt empowered. I felt like, okay, I'm not weak. I'm not, it's not just me. There's a reason I feel this way. And I have sent that book to 13 other veterans that I know, because I'm tired of eulogizing my friends at funerals, and I'm tired of attending military funerals for soldiers who gave up their battle. So I have a strong passion to fill the gap of the resources that are needed for our veterans in the field of mental health. And again, I believe I bring a credibility with me to the program that will be very beneficial to soldiers. And the final question, again, what are some differences that this program will afford me versus previous academic experiences I've had? And I did get a master's degree already at Duke, and was highly successful in that. I enjoyed it tremendously. The difference with this program is that it will be online. But I've been an overachiever my whole life. I am a self-starter. I am very motivated. I'm very much looking forward to gaining some vital knowledge to get back into the trenches, to get back into the world of trauma in a different way, and the trauma of the soul. So I appreciate the opportunity and the invitation to do an interview, and I hope to join you for your fall semester in the Psychiatric Mental Health Nurse Practitioner Program. Thank you very much.